Hi there. This is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about where do we get oxalates from. Now, we know that oxalates have no role in humans except as a breakdown product of two amino acids. You make about 25 milligrams a day. And really, they play no role in humans. But in many, many insects and plants, there's a big role. Oxalates allow plants to live in very adverse environments that have a high burden of toxic metals that allows them to live there. But mostly oxalates are sort of like the coating on plants that prevents them from being eaten by insects. In fact, their crystals are oftentimes what cause the damage. Okay, so that's what happens in nature, but we don't actually have a role for oxalates in our metabolism ourselves. So the problem is do we get a lot of oxalates, and is that a problem? Well, we do know there's something called a genetic defect called primary oxaluria that actually makes a lot of oxalates and they get into renal failure eventually. But what about plants? What plants cause a problem? Let's start with a couple. Spinach, archetype of a wonderful plant for you, awfully good for you. 1 cup of cooked spinach, 750 milligrams of oxalates. A cup of soy milk, 336 milligrams. An ounce of almonds, 122 milligrams. Baked potato, 97. Beets, 152. Beans, 76. So you get up in the morning and you think you're doing yourself a huge favor by making yourself a smoothie. And you have 2 cups of spinach in there that you blend in, and you put in some soy and some nuts and some. Before you know it, you have almost a gram of oxalates in your smoothie. Is that a problem? Well, we're not sure. If you do it in the short term, you probably don't cause any real problem any more than going to a fast food restaurant and having saturated fats and refined flour. But we do know that you get yourself into trouble. Now, folks for example, there's one case report in the literature of a person on dialysis who had a smoothie and got into worse renal failure. Okay, one case example. But there is published literature that shows that microcalcifications in the breast strongly correlate with oxalate intake. So oxalates do cause a problem. And in fact, if we inject oxalates into the mouse pad of mice, we can show that they make cancerous changes just like what you see in calcifications in the breast. So this is a big problem. What happens if you continuously eat foods? What happens to your blood level if you eat foods? And let me give you an example. Favorite food of everybody, chocolate. 4 ounces of chocolate for a day. With 6 volunteers, 4 ounces or 100 grams of chocolate. Their blood level gets to the same as those with primary hyperoxaluria who end up in renal failure. So if you eat 4 ounces of chocolate every day, you might be damaging your kidneys. We just don't know. But Bruce Ames, a very famous functional medicine doctor, talks about the triage theory. He says you only get into trouble by the things that's the most egregious, but that little low-grade problem that you're doing all the time adds up along the line. And it's those little things, it's death by 1,000 cuts. And eventually you end up with low-grade renal failure and you don't know where it came from. You lose 15-20% of your kidney function. You get microcalcifications. All of that is wearing you down. Oxalates, death by 1,000 cuts. Less spinach, the better. What works for me? I've stopped eating spinach. Kale is pretty free, so I eat a lot more kale. And I'm not eating as much chocolate. You can make those choices too. Enjoy your chocolate once in a while. Dr. John Whitcomb for News and Nutrition, where we get oxalates from.